Well, that's a great question. So there's a debt clock in New York City where it shows the debt climbing up, famous clock. One of my buddies who's a congressman, he created a version of that you can put on your coat, your jacket pocket, and he wears it on the House floor. So you see the debt going up. He's an engineer, so he figured it out. He gave me one, and I said, you know, it's nice. I was like, could you do one for the state of Florida? Because if you did one for Florida, it wouldn't be counting up. It would be counting down, because we've reduced our debt, paid off 25% of our state debt just since I've become governor. I mean, that I think is kind of the approach that you want to do it. You got to be willing to use the veto pen when they're spending too much money. And I look at COVID was, from the 21st century on, it's not been a great trajectory, but COVID kind of just like did. They used COVID as a pretext to just shove a bunch of money out that they knew they couldn't do under normal circumstances. And so massive debt, starting with Trump, and he did $4.2 trillion just in his last year. Then Biden did 1.9 and other stuff. But what they've done is they basically just kept those levels of spending where those were never justified to begin with. And so you have to go back to where we were before that and then freeze that in place for the non-defense. I mean, I think that would save hundreds of billions of dollars. I think you have to do that. The other thing is I think you need structural reform. Part of the reason Florida, we've been able to pay down the debt is I have a balanced budget requirement in the state constitution. So you go in, there's not even a question about running a debt. Like you have to balance the budget. The other thing is I have a line item veto. They put a budget on my desk. I can veto individual items out. I vetoed 3% of the budget one year, $3.3 billion. I wouldn't have been able to pay down as much debt had I not done that. So you have your money is being spent on things like promoting transgenderism in Bangladesh. Like, is that really something that your tax dollars should? But president gets a big, massive bill, and you can fund everything and sign it, or you can fund nothing and veto it. So the incentives are to pack as much nonsense into there that the congressmen want, knowing that the vehicle's going to go and you're going to get that. Having that line item veto for president, I think, would be important. So balanced budget requirement and line item veto, that can be done through the states, and Florida's already done things like that. And then I think you need term limits for members of Congress, because what happens is their main goal is to stay in office. Like, that's just it. Well, if that's your goal and you're trying to deal with fiscal, borrowing is the best way to stay in office. Because if they reduce spending, there are constituencies for the programs. Some people may get mad at you. Obviously, if you raise people's taxes, they're going to get really mad at you. So they're always going to want to just do that. If you're term limited, I think, and I've seen this in Florida, people are thinking, okay, I'm here for 3 terms or whatever. I want to have something to show for it. I want to leave a legacy. I know I'm not going to be here for the next 20, 30 years. So I think they're willing to make better decisions. I think in Florida, it's shown having term limits has been a big benefit. So I think there are things in the long term. The incentives in Washington are hot-wired to produce the results we have right now. And I can sit there and tell you I'll offer better leadership, and I will, and it will make a difference. But is that going to be enough for 30 years, 40 years down the road? I think we got to have some structural change so that we're changing the incentives of how Washington operates.